The massive chamber stretched out like a small city. Thousands of seats rose in circles toward the ceiling, each one filled with beings that looked nothing like humans. Some had scales that changed colors as they spoke. Others floated in glass, tanks filled with strange gases. A few looked like walking trees with eyes that glowed in the dark. Admiral Jake Morrison sat in one of the small human seats near the back. His uniform felt tight around his shoulders as he watched the aliens debate. Next to him, Lisa Carter shuffled through papers with shaking hands. She had been Earth's top diplomat for 15 years, but today felt different. The day felt like the end of something important. The speaker at the front of the room was a creature made of living crystal. Its name was Zethkar, and it spoke for the Galactic Council. When it talked, its voice came out like music, but the words it said were not beautiful at all. "The motion before us today concerns the human species," Zethkar announced. Its crystal body caught the light and threw rainbows across the chamber walls. "They have grown too quickly. They ask for too much. It is time to set proper limits." Jake felt his jaw tighten. He had heard these words before, but never so openly. For 3 years, Lisa had tried to work with these aliens. She had made deals, signed papers, and attended endless meetings, all to keep humanity's place at this table. "The humans currently control 12 star systems," continued another speaker. "This one looked like a giant spider with too many legs. They want to expand to the Outer Rim territories. This cannot be allowed." A low humming filled the chamber. As the alien species showed their agreement, Jake had learned to read their signals over the years. The humming meant yes. The clicking sounds meant no. Right now, there was only humming. Lisa leaned over to whisper in Jake's ear, "They're not even pretending to be fair anymore." Jake nodded but kept his eyes on the speakers. He had commanded warships in 3 different conflicts. He knew what a losing battle looked like. This was one of them. "Furthermore," the spider creature continued, "human military forces must be reduced by 60%. Their aggressive expansion threatens the peace we have worked so hard to maintain." More humming filled the air. Jack noticed that even the Veltar were staying quiet. The Veltar had been humanity's closest allies for 5 years. They looked almost human, except for their blue skin and extra arms. If they were not speaking up now, nobody would. "Any new human colonies must be approved by no fewer than 5 senior council members," Zethkar added. "This will ensure that humanity learns to work within proper boundaries." Jake had heard enough. He started to stand, but Lisa grabbed his arm. She whispered, "Let me try one more time." She stood up slowly and pressed a button on her table. A small light appeared above the human section, showing that she wanted to speak. "Speaker Zethkar," Lisa called out. Her voice carried across the huge chamber, thanks to the translation machines. "The human delegation requests permission to address the council." The crystal being's musical voice filled the air again. "Council will hear from the junior member. After all humanity had done, after all the trade agreements and military support they had provided, they were still called junior members." Lisa took a deep breath. "Honored council members, humanity has followed every rule and regulation placed before us. We have contributed to council defense forces. We have shared our technology. We have opened our trade routes. All we ask for in return is the right to grow and explore, just as every other species here has done." The chamber fell silent. Jake could hear his own heartbeat in the quiet. "The Outer Rim territories are dangerous," Lisa continued. "Other species have declared them too risky to colonize. Humanity is willing to take those risks. You're not taking anything away from anyone else." She paused and looked around the chamber. "We came here seeking partnership. We believed that working together would make all of us stronger. Was that belief wrong?" The silence stretched on for several long minutes. Then the voting began. Species after species cast their votes. The results appeared as lights on a massive board at the front of the chamber. Green meant yes to the restrictions. Red meant no. Yellow meant abstained. Jake watched as green light after green light appeared on the board. The Nexus Collective voted yes. The Arachnid Consortium voted yes. The Merchant Guild voted yes. Even species that humanity had helped in the past voted yes. When the Veltar-S turn came, their section stayed dark for a long moment. Then a yellow light appeared. Abstain. They would not help humanity, but they would not vote against them either. The final count appeared on the board. 43 votes for the restrictions, 2 votes against, 2 abstentions. The humans had lost, and it was not even close. Zethkar's musical voice filled the chamber once more. The motion passes. The restrictions on human expansion will take effect immediately. Jake stood up slowly, reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metal badge. It was shaped like Earth and had the Council's symbol etched into it. Every human diplomat carried one. It showed that they belonged here, that they had a voice in galactic affairs. He looked at the badge for a moment, remembering the day he had first received it. He had been so proud then, so hopeful about what humanity could accomplish as part of something bigger. Now he placed the badge on the table in front of him. The small metal object made a clear ringing sound as it hit the surface. In the huge chamber, that tiny sound seemed to echo forever. The human delegation withdraws from this council, effective immediately, Jake announced. His voice was calm, but it carried to every corner of the chamber. We came here seeking partnership. Instead, we found only condescension and chains. He picked up his papers and turned toward the exit. Lisa gathered her materials and followed him. Behind them, the other human diplomats and military officers did the same, as they walked toward the chamber doors. Zethkar's voice followed them. There was something that might have been laughter in the musical tones. "Where will you go, little humans?" Crystal being called out. "You need us more than we need you." Jake stopped at the massive doorway, turned back to look at the chamber. One last time, thousands of alien faces stared back at him. Some looked surprised. Others seemed amused. A few appeared worried. "We'll see about that," Jake said quietly. Then he walked out of the chamber, out of the council building, and into an uncertain future. Behind him, Lisa and the rest of the human delegation followed. They had burned their bridges. There was no going back now. As they stepped into the alien city outside, Jake felt something he had not experienced in years. Despite everything that had just happened, despite the fear and uncertainty ahead, he felt free. The Galactic Council had made their choice. Now humanity would make theirs. 6 months had passed since humanity walked out of the council chambers. Captain Ryan Blake stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the stars through the main window. But this was not like any ship humanity had built before. The Independence floated in space near Jupiter's largest moon. Its hull gleamed with a strange silver metal that seemed to shift colors in the sunlight. The design looked nothing like the boxy council ships that all member species were required to use. This ship was sleek and curved, like something born from human imagination rather than alien blueprints. "Captain, we're ready for the first test," called out Lieutenant Amy Walsh from her station. She was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes that never seemed to stop moving. For the past year, she had been working on something that Council scientists said was impossible. "Are you sure about this, Amy?" Ryan asked. He trusted her. But what she was proposing went against everything they had been taught about space travel. Amy grinned and nodded. "The math works, Captain. I've checked it 100 times. The phase drive will get us to Alpha Centauri in 3 hours instead of 3 weeks." Ryan had read her reports, but he still found it hard to believe. The Council's fastest ships needed weeks to travel between star systems. Amy claimed she could do it in hours by bending space in ways that made Council physicists shake their heads. "All right, Amy, show us what humanity can do when we stop following their rules." Amy's fingers danced across her control panel. The ship began to hum with a sound that felt alive. Outside the windows, the stars started to change. They stretched into long lines of light, then twisted into spirals, then did things that had no names at all. "Phase drive engaged," Amy announced. "We are no longer bound by normal space." The journey to Alpha Centauri took exactly 2 hours and 47 minutes. When they dropped back into normal space, Ryan stared at the alien star in amazement. They had just traveled for light years faster than any ship in galactic history. "Amy," he said quietly, "I think you just changed everything." News of the successful test spread quickly through human space. Within weeks, every human shipyard was working to build more phase-drive ships. The technology was not just fast, it was also cheaper and easier to maintain than Council engines. On Earth, Admiral Jake Morrison read the reports with growing excitement. He had spent the last 6 months wondering if humanity had made the right choice by leaving the Council. He was starting to think they had made the only choice. "Sir, we're getting reports from the outer colonies," said his aide, a young officer named Tony Clark. "They're saying they don't need supply runs from Council traders anymore. They're building everything they need locally." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Everything, yes, sir? Food, medicine, tools, even computer systems?" Apparently, when we stopped having to follow Council regulations, our engineers got creative very quickly. This was true. Human colonies that had struggled for years were suddenly thriving. Without Council rules limiting their technology, human inventors were coming up with solutions that worked better than anything the aliens had provided. Dr. Ben Harper, working on a research station near Mars, had figured out how to grow food in space using 1/10 the resources Council methods required. His vertical farms could feed 1 million people using the space that Council farms needed for 10,000. Meanwhile, engineer Kate Phillips had solved the power problem that had plagued human colonies for decades. Her fusion reactors were smaller, safer, and more efficient than anything the Council had ever built. Better yet, they could be constructed using materials found on almost any planet. The changes were not going unnoticed. In a dark room, light years away, Council Intelligence Director Silmoth studied the reports coming from human space. His 8 eyes reflected the data screens as his mechanical arms sorted through information. "The humans are building something," he told his assistants. "Our spy satellites detect massive construction projects in 7 different systems. All of them are hidden behind some kind of shielding we cannot penetrate." One of his assistants, a floating brain in a jar, pulsed with curiosity. "What do you think they are building?" "I do not know," Silmoth admitted. "But their shipping traffic has increased by 400% in 6 months. Their energy output suggests they have made technological advances that should not be possible." For their species level, the reports were troubling. Human colonies were not just surviving without Council support, they were growing faster than ever before. New settlements were appearing in systems that Council surveys had marked as uninhabitable. Human ships were being spotted in regions of space that were supposedly impossible to reach. Most disturbing of all, human technology was starting to appear in the independent markets. Non-Council species were buying human goods and asking questions. About why they needed Council membership at all, Silmoth compiled his findings into a report and sent it to the Council chambers. He marked it as urgent and requested an immediate response. The response came back 3 days later. Speaker Zethka had reviewed the intelligence and dismissed it as unimportant. "Let them play with their toys," the crystal being had written. "They will come crawling back when reality sets in." But Silmoth was not convinced. He had been studying alien species for 200 years, and he knew the signs of a civilization about to make a major leap forward.
Ow.
The humans were showing all of those signs and more. On the trading station called Haven's Rest, alien merchants were starting to worry. For decades, they had grown comfortable selling basic goods to human colonies at high prices. The humans had always needed their help and were willing to pay whatever was asked. Now those same human colonies were turning away trade ships. They were not buying food, medicine, or manufactured goods anymore. Instead, they were offering to sell their own products at prices that made the established traders nervous. Voxelin, four-armed trader from the Merchant Guild, had been selling to humans for 15 years. He had made a fortune from their dependency. Now he sat in his ship, staring at a rejection letter from a human colony that had once been his best customer. "We appreciate your past business," the letter read, "but we no longer require external suppliers. However, we would be happy to discuss purchasing agreements for our new line of atmospheric processors, which are 30% more efficient than current galactic standards." Voxelin crumpled the letter in one of his hands. The humans were not just surviving without the Council, they were competing. Back on Earth, Amy Walsh stood in her laboratory, looking at the prototype of humanity's next breakthrough. She called it the quantum communicator, and it would allow instant communication across any distance. No more waiting weeks for messages to travel between star systems. No more isolation for distant colonies. "Captain Blake," she said into her. "Come, unit, I think I have something else that will interest you." Ryan's voice crackled back through the speakers. "Another impossible invention, Amy." "Something like that," she replied with a smile. "How would you like to talk to someone on the other side of the galaxy as easily as talking to someone in the next room?" There was a long pause. Then Ryan's voice came back, filled with excitement. "Amy, I'm starting to think the Council made a very big mistake when they let us walk away." Amy looked out her laboratory window at the busy space traffic around Earth. Human ships were coming and going constantly now, carrying supplies and people to dozens of new colonies. The phase drive had made it possible to settle worlds that were previously too far away to be practical. "I don't think they let us walk away, Captain," she said quietly. "I think they pushed us out the door. Now we're about to show them what happens when you underestimate humanity." Outside her window, the Independence was preparing for another test flight. This time, they were going to try reaching the Andromeda Galaxy. Amy's calculations said it was possible. The Council's scientists said it was impossible. Amy was looking forward to proving them wrong again. Ambassador Claire Johnson walked through the gardens of Haven's Rest, breathing air that smelled like home. The planet had been nothing but rocks and ice when humans found it 2 years ago. Now it bloomed with Earth's plants and alien flowers that somehow grew together in perfect harmony. Today was important. She was meeting with representatives from 3 species that had never been allowed to join the Galactic Council. They had been waiting outside the Council's doors for centuries, always told they were not advanced enough or civilized enough to deserve membership. The first to arrive was Nexus Prime Jarrell from the Kepler Collective. He stood nearly 8 feet tall and looked like a cross between a human and a tree. His bark-like skin was covered in patterns that glowed softly in the afternoon light. "Ambassador Johnson," he said in perfect English. His people had been studying human languages for months. "Your planet is beautiful. We did not think such rapid terraforming was possible." Claire smiled and gestured toward a bench made from local stone. "Please, call me Claire. And thank you. We've learned a lot about working with nature instead of against it." The next to join them was Captain Nixara, from the Wanderer clans. She was small and quick, silver skin that reflected light like a mirror. Her people lived on ships that traveled between the stars, never staying in one place for very long. "Wanderers have watched humans with great interest," she said, settling onto the bench like a bird landing on a branch. "You move through space like we do, always exploring, always curious about what lies beyond the next star." The third representative was different from the others. Commander Baitalak from the Silicon tribes was not made of flesh and blood at all. His body was constructed from living metal and crystal circuits. When he spoke, his voice sounded like music played on electronic instruments. "The Silicon tribes calculate that human innovation exceeds council predictions by factors of 12 to 1, he announced. "We find this statistically fascinating and strategically advantageous." Claire had prepared for this meeting for weeks. These 3 species represented thousands of worlds and millions of beings. They all had one thing in common. The Galactic Council had rejected them. "My friends," Claire began, "humanity knows what it feels like to be dismissed by those who think themselves superior. We know the frustration of being told we are not ready, not worthy, not civilized enough to have a voice in galactic affairs." Jarrell's bark patterns pulsed with agreement. "The Kepler Collective has petitioned for council membership for 400 years. Always we are told to wait, to prove ourselves further, to meet standards that seem to change whenever we approach. Them, the Wanderers stopped asking to join 50 years ago," added Nixara. "We decided that freedom was worth more than their approval." Baitalak circuits hummed with calculation. "The Silicon tribes have determined that council membership would reduce our efficiency by 37% due to regulatory compliance requirements. We prefer independence." Claire nodded. "And perhaps it's time we stopped asking for permission and started building something better." She activated a holographic projector that showed a map of the galaxy. Red areas marked council space. Blue areas showed the territory controlled by the three species represented here. Green areas indicated human colonies and allies. Individually, we are strong but limited, Claire explained. Together, we could control nearly half the galaxy. More importantly, we could offer something the Council never has: true equality. Among member species, the discussion that followed lasted for hours. They talked about trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, and shared technology development. Each species brought unique strengths to the table. The Kepler Collective had perfected mining techniques that could extract rare minerals from the most hostile environments. The Wanderer clan's new navigation routes through dangerous regions of space that Council ships could never follow. The Silicon tribes had developed computer systems that could process information faster than any organic brain. When combined with human innovation and determination, these capabilities could reshape the galaxy. We proposed the formation of the Independent Systems Alliance, Claire announced as the sun began to set over Haven's Rest. A federation of free species working together by choice, not by force. Within 6 months, the ISA had grown from 4 founding members to 15. Species that had been ignored or rejected by the Council flocked to join an organization that valued their contributions. General Kate Phillips, formerly a colonel in the human military, now commanded the ISA Joint Forces. She stood in the command center of the newest ISA base, watching displays that showed fleet movements across dozens of star systems. General, the Kepler mining ships have extracted enough rare metals to build 50 new phase drive ships, reported her aide, Lieutenant Tom Baker. The Wanderer scouts have found 3 new systems suitable for colonization. The Silicon tribes have upgraded our communication networks to handle real-time coordination across all member territories. Kate nodded with satisfaction. Each member species contributed what they did best, and the results were impressive. ESA space was becoming the most prosperous region of the galaxy. The technological advances were remarkable. Dr. Ben Harper, working with Silicon Tribe computer specialists, had developed manufacturing systems that could build a complete starship in 2 weeks instead of 2 years. The ships that rolled out of these factories were more advanced than anything in the Council's fleet. Meanwhile, human materials scientists working with Kepler engineers had created new alloys that were stronger than Council hull materials while weighing half as much. The combination of human creativity and alien expertise was producing innovations that neither species could have achieved alone. The Council was starting to notice. Intelligence reports spoke of massive ISA construction projects. Council trade ships reported being turned away from systems that had once been eager customers. Several Council member species were asking uncomfortable questions about why they needed Council membership when they could trade freely with the ISA. On the neutral world of Crossroads Station, Boxlin the trader met with other concerned merchants. The 4-armed alien looked worried as he shared his latest reports. Human goods are flooding the independent markets, he told the assembled group. Their technology is becoming more sought after than ours. 3 of my regular customers have asked why they need to buy Council-approved products when ESA alternatives are cheaper and better. A floating brain from the Nexus Collective pulsed with concern. Our manufacturing guilds are reporting similar problems. ESA products are setting new standards that make our goods look outdated. It gets worse, added a crystalline being from the Diamond Worlds. 2 systems in our trade network have applied for ESA membership. They say the ESA offers better protection and more favorable trade terms than we do. The merchant sat in worried silence. For centuries, they had enjoyed a monopoly on galactic trade. The Council system guaranteed their profits by limiting competition and controlling technology sharing. Now that system was falling apart. Back on Earth, Admiral Jake Morrison read the intelligence reports with growing satisfaction. The ISA was exceeding every projection they had made. Member species were contributing resources and knowledge at rates that surprised even the most optimistic planners. Sir, we have a request from the Crimson Fleet, reported his aide. They want to join the ISA? That would give us control of the entire spiral arm trade route? Jake smiled. The Crimson Fleet was a confederation of independent traders who had operated outside Council control for decades. Adding them to the ISA would effectively cut the Council off from a major source of income. Prove their application, Jake ordered, and send a message to all ESA members. It's time to expand our recruitment efforts. The galaxy is full of species who are tired of Council bureaucracy. As news of the IS's growth spread, more species began to reconsider their allegiances. Council had ruled through fear and control for thousands of years. The ISA offered something different, cooperation based on mutual benefit and respect. On Haven's Rest, Claire Johnson received a message that made her smile. The message was from a species called the Free Miners, who controlled asteroid mining. Operations in 12 systems, they had been neutral for centuries, selling to whoever paid the best prices. Ambassador Johnson, the message read, the Free Miners have voted to join the Independent Systems Alliance. We believe the future belongs to those who choose freedom over fear. Claire forwarded the message to Admiral Morrison with a note of her own, Jake. I think the Council is about to learn what happens when you force innovators to find their own path. They created their own competition, and were winning. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the ISA flagship Liberator. Watching the Council armada approach through the darkness of space, 300 Council ships moved in perfect formation toward the Taetti system, their hulls gleaming. With the standard designs that all member species were required to use, Admiral, they're broadcasting on all frequencies, reported Communications Officer Lisa Park. Council Admiral Vexmore is demanding we surrender the system and return to Council oversight. Jake nodded calmly. He had expected this day would come. The Council had watched the ISA grow for 2 years, becoming more nervous with each new member that joined. The mineral-rich Taetti system was valuable, but this was not really about mining rights. This was about power. How many ships do we have in the area? Jake asked his tactical officer. 112, sir, replied Commander Tony Walsh. We're outnumbered almost 3 to 1. Jake smiled. Numbers had never told the whole story in war. Open a channel to the Council. Fleet. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of a massive Council dreadnought. Admiral Vexmore looked like a giant lizard wearing too much gold decoration. His yellow eyes burned with anger as he stared at Jake. Admiral Morrison, Vexmore, hissed through the translation system. You will surrender this system immediately and return to Council oversight. This is your final warning. Jake straightened his uniform and looked directly into the camera. Admiral Vexmore, your ships are in violation of ESA territorial space. You have 30 seconds to withdraw or face the consequences. Moore laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. You have 100 ships against my 300? Your human arrogance will be your destruction. 25 seconds, Jake replied calmly. Around him, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. The Liberator and its escort ships had been built using the best technology from all ESA member species. Human phase drives, Kepler shield generators, Silicon Tribe targeting systems, and Wanderer stealth technology, all working together. 15 seconds, Jake announced. You're bluffing, Dexmore growled. No species would be foolish enough to fight the Council with such odds. 10 seconds. The Council Admiral's confidence began to waver. Something in Jake's voice suggested this was not a bluff. 5 seconds. Admiral Morrison, I warn you, time's up, Jake said quietly. All ESA ships, you are cleared to engage. Show them what freedom looks like. What happened next would be remembered as the Battle of Taetti, the day the galaxy learned that the age of Council dominance was over. The ISA ships moved like nothing the Council had ever seen. Phase drives allowed them to appear and disappear, faster than Council sensors could track. One moment they were there, the next they were gone, only to reappear behind the Council formation. The Council ships tried to respond with their standard tactics, but they were fighting an enemy that did not follow standard rules. ESA vessels darted between the massive Council dreadnoughts like angry wasps, their weapons cutting through Council shields as if they were made of paper. Captain Amy Walsh, now commanding the fast attack ship Innovation, led a squadron of 12 ships against a council battle group. Her vessels were small compared to the enemy dreadnoughts, but they moved with impossible speed and precision. "Target their shield generators," Amy ordered. "Remember, we don't want to destroy them all." "Want them to go home and tell everyone what they saw here?" Her weapons officer, Lieutenant Ben Carter, nodded and targeted the enemy ship's defensive systems. The Innovation's quantum cannons fired beams of pure energy that punched through Council armor like it was thin metal within minutes. The Council battle group was drifting helplessly in space, their weapons disabled and their shields down. Amy's squadron had not suffered a single casualty. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Council ships that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years were being systematically disabled by vessels they had never imagined possible. Admiral Vexmore watched his fleet fall apart with growing horror. His tactical displays showed impossible things. ESA ships were moving faster than his sensors could follow. Their weapons were more powerful than anything in the Council arsenal. His shield technology, which had protected Council fleets for centuries, was useless against their attacks. "How is this possible?" he whispered to his bridge crew. "Intelligence reports said the humans were primitive. They said their technology was decades behind ours." His communications officer, a nervous creature with too many tentacles, stammered a reply. "Sir, maybe the intelligence reports were wrong. Maybe we underestimated them." On the ISA flagship, Commander Tony Walsh watched the tactical display with satisfaction. "Admiral, 60% of the Council fleet is disabled. The rest are requesting permission to withdraw." Jake nodded. "Grant them permission, and make sure they understand that this is what happens when you threaten ISA territory." Admiral Vexmore's face appeared on the main screen again. The arrogance was gone, replaced by fear and confusion. "Admiral Morrison, we withdraw our claim to this system. Council fleet is returning to our territory." "A wise decision," Jake replied. "Admiral, I want you to take a message back to your council. The ISA does not seek war, but we will defend ourselves. The galaxy is big enough for all of us, but only if we respect each other's sovereignty." The battle had lasted for hours. When it was over, the Council had lost 90 ships, destroyed or disabled. The ISA had lost 3 vessels, and those were damaged, not destroyed, as the surviving Council ships limped away from Taetti. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The ISA's quantum communication network carried the story to every major world within hours. Dr. Susan Lewis, monitoring the engagement from the ISA Command Center on New Terra, sent a simple message to every major power in the galaxy: the age of Council dominance is over. The galaxy belongs to those bold enough to claim it. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Within days, 3 star systems declared independence from the Council and applied for ESA membership. The Outer Rim Trade Federation, which had remained neutral for centuries, announced they would no longer recognize Council authority in their territory. On the Council homeworld, panic set in. Speaker Zethkar faced angry demands from member species who wanted to know how the humans had achieved such military superiority so quickly. How had a species that left the Council in shame 2 years ago become powerful enough to defeat their finest fleet? Emergency sessions were called. Military advisors presented reports that no one wanted to believe. The ISA had developed technology that made Council science look primitive. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, their defenses more effective. Worse yet, the ISA was growing every day. Species that had been loyal Council members for generations were reconsidering their allegiances. The promise of technological advancement and equal treatment was more appealing than the Council's rigid hierarchy. Trade Representative Voxelin brought the most disturbing news to the emergency session. Honored Council members, 17 more species have applied for ESA membership since the battle. The ESA is offering trade agreements that we cannot match and military protection that we apparently cannot provide. Speaker Zethkar's crystal body flickered with anger and fear. How did this happen? The humans were insignificant when they left us. They needed our guidance, our protection. An old advisor, a floating brain that had served the council for 800 years, pulsed with what might have been wisdom, perhaps. Speaker, we gave them something more valuable than guidance. We gave them motivation. Truth was becoming clear to everyone in the chamber. By rejecting humanity and trying to limit their growth, the council had created their own greatest enemy. They had taken a species known for innovation and determination and given them every reason to surpass their former masters. The final blow came 3 days later when President Helen Tucker of the ISA made a galactic broadcast from New Terra. Her message was heard on every world, by every species, from the Council core worlds to the most distant colonies. To all civilizations listening, she said, looking directly into the camera with calm confidence. Humanity and our ESA partners extend an invitation to join us in building a galaxy based on cooperation, not domination. The Council had its chance. To lead, they chose fear over progress. We choose freedom. Broadcast continued with images of ESA worlds thriving, ISA ships exploring new systems, and ESA scientists making discoveries that advanced all member species. It was a vision of what the galaxy could become when beings work together as equals. When the broadcast ended, the silence in the council chambers was deafening. Everyone present understood that something fundamental had changed. The humans had not just left the table, they had built a better one and invited everyone else to join them. Admiral Jake Morrison, watching from the bridge of the Liberator, allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The Council had made their choice 2 years ago when they pushed humanity out. Now they would live with the consequences of underestimating the most adaptable species in the galaxy. 2 years had passed since the Battle of Tau Ceti changed everything. Commander Alex Stone stood on the observation deck of the ISA flagship New Dawn, watching Earth grow larger in the view screen. He had been away for 6 months, helping establish new colonies in the Andromeda Galaxy. Now he was coming home to a world that had become the center of galactic civilization. The sight took his breath away. Massive space stations orbited Earth like silver rings, each one larger than most cities. Ships from dozens of different species moved between the stations in carefully organized traffic patterns. The orbital elevators that connected the surface to space carried a constant stream of people and cargo. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said Captain Lisa Park, joining him at the viewing window. She commanded one of the new exploration ships that were mapping previously unknown regions of space. "Hard to believe this is the same planet the Council thought was so primitive." Alex nodded. Earth had become something incredible. The blue and green world below was still recognizable, but the space around it buzzed with activity that made the old Council homeworld look quiet by comparison. "Captain Stone, President Tucker is ready to see you," announced a young ensign. Alex straightened his uniform and headed toward the meeting room, where Earth's leader was waiting. President Helen Tucker looked tired, but satisfied as she reviewed reports on her desk. The past 2 years had been busy ones, filled with decisions that affected billions of lives across the galaxy. When Alex entered, she looked up with a smile. "Alex, welcome back. How did the Andromeda mission go?" "Better than expected, Madam President. We've established 3 new colonies and made contact with 4 previously unknown species. All of them are interested in joining the ISA after seeing what we can offer." Helen nodded with satisfaction. The ISA now controlled 40% of known space, with new members joining every month. What had started as a small alliance of rejected species had become the most powerful force in the galaxy. "Ma'am, we have visitors," announced her secretary over the intercom. "The Council delegation has arrived." Helen sighed. She had been expecting this visit for weeks. The Galactic Council, now reduced to barely 20 member species, is finally ready to admit they had made a mistake. The meeting room doors opened, and Ambassador Kethvon of the Veltar entered. Alex remembered him from the old days when humanity had still been part of the Council. Kethvon had been one of the few aliens who had shown any respect for human capabilities. Behind Kethvon came 3 other Council representatives, all from species that had once looked down on humanity as primitive and insignificant. Now they looked nervous and uncertain, like students meeting with a teacher they had disappointed. President Tucker Kethvon began, his forearms moving in a gesture of respect. "Thank you for agreeing to see us. The Council wishes to discuss the current galactic situation." Helen gestured for them to sit. "Of course, Ambassador. What can the ISA do for the Council?" The question hung in the air with quiet irony. 2 years ago, it would have been the Council asking what they could do for humanity. Now the roles were completely reversed. Madame President Kethvon said carefully, "The Council recognizes that we may have made errors in our treatment of humanity. We are prepared to offer full Council membership, senior status, and significant concessions if you would consider returning." Alex watched Helen's face as she considered the offer. There was no anger there, no desire for revenge, just the calm confidence of someone who had moved beyond the need for their approval. "Ambassador," Helen replied politely, "we appreciate the offer, but humanity and our ISA partners have moved beyond the need for your council. We built something better. However, individual species are welcome to join the ISA under our Charter of Equality and Mutual Respect." The council representatives exchanged glances. This was clearly not the response they had hoped for. But Shirley pressed another ambassador. There must be some way to restore the old relationships. The galaxy needs stability. The council has maintained peace for thousands of years. "Has it?" Helen asked quietly. "From what I remember, the council maintained control through fear and restrictions. That's not the same as peace. The ISA has grown to 47 member species without a single war between members. Our way works better." Alex had seen the proof of this during his travels. ISA's space was thriving in ways that Council territory never had. Trade flowed freely between member species. Technology advanced rapidly as different civilizations shared their knowledge. New worlds were being settled and terraformed using techniques that made Council methods look primitive. The meeting continued for another hour, but the outcome was clear. The Council had nothing to offer that the ISA wanted or needed. Ambassadors finally left. They looked like beings who had just realized their time was over. Later that day, Alex joined Dr. Amy Walsh in her laboratory complex on Luna. She was working on humanity's latest breakthrough, something she called the Gateway Project. Technology would allow instantaneous travel between star systems, making even the phase drive look slow by comparison. "Alex, perfect timing," Amy said, looking up from a device that seemed to bend light around itself. "We're ready for the first test. Want to see something that will make Council science look like cave paintings?" The test was conducted in a secure facility buried deep under the lunar surface. When Amy activated the gateway, a shimmering portal opened in the air, showing a view of a distant star system. Through the opening, Alex could see one of the new ISA colonies, complete with its orbital stations and bustling space traffic. "We can now connect any 2 points in the galaxy instantly," Amy explained. "Communication, travel, trade, everything becomes immediate. Distance is no longer a limitation." Alex stared at the portal in amazement. "Amy, this changes everything." "Again, that's what we do," she replied with a grin. "Keep changing everything until we get it right." News of the Gateway Project spread quickly through ISA space. Within months, a network of permanent gateways connected major ISA worlds, allowing unprecedented cooperation and coordination. Member species could share resources instantly, respond to emergencies immediately, and explore the galaxy as if it were their own neighborhood. The effect on the Council was devastating. 3 more founding members announced their intention to leave and petition for ISA membership. The Nexus Collective, one of the oldest Council species, sent a formal request to join the ISA, bringing with them advanced technologies that further enhanced ESA capabilities. In the abandoned council chambers, Speaker Zethkar stood alone among empty seats. His crystal form reflected the dim emergency lighting as he contemplated the collapse of everything his civilization had built. Only 12 species remained in the council, and half of them were considering leaving. The trade networks that had supported the council economy for millennia were switching to ESA's systems. The military forces that had enforced council authority were being outmatched by ESA. Fleets equipped with impossible technology. Admiral Jake Morrison, now serving as ISA Defense Coordinator, delivered his final assessment in a report to the ISA Congress. The Council feared our potential and tried to contain it. In doing so, they gave us the greatest gift possible, the motivation to exceed every limitation they placed on us. They taught us that sometimes the only way to win the game is to stop playing by rules designed to make you lose. Alex read the report while standing on the observation deck of New Terra Station, the new ISA capital. Below him, the planet bustled, with activity as beings from dozens of species worked together in ways the Council had never imagined possible. The space around New Terra was filled with ships from across the galaxy. Human vessels worked alongside Kepler mining ships, Wanderer exploration craft, and Silicon Tribe research stations. The diversity was stunning, but what impressed Alex most was how naturally everyone cooperated. Commander Stone called out, Lieutenant Tom Baker, interrupting his thoughts. We just received word from the Crimson Nebula expedition. They've made contact with a new civilization that's interested in joining the ISA. That would make us the 48th member species. Alex smiled. The ISA kept growing, not through conquest or intimidation, but because other species wanted to be part of something better. They saw what humanity and its partners had built and wanted to contribute to it. 5 years earlier, humanity had walked out of the council chambers feeling rejected and alone. Now they led a galactic civilization that offered opportunities the council had never dreamed of. The galaxy was vast, filled with wonders waiting to be discovered and challenges waiting to be overcome. But humanity was no longer facing those challenges alone. They had friends, partners, and allies who shared their vision of what the future could become. Alex looked out at the stars and smiled. The table humanity had left was gone, replaced by something infinitely better. The feast of possibilities they had created was just beginning, and there was room for everyone who wanted to join them. The age of human ascendancy had arrived, but it was an ascendancy built on cooperation, innovation, and the simple belief that the galaxy belonged to all who were brave enough to reach for the stars.